Hello, I'm John Ryan.
And I'm JD Orr, and this is Where Oh Where Are All Our American Handball Players Playing? A U.S. Handball Talk.
Where, oh, where? Indeed. Well, I just posted on Instagram uh, something I can still hardly believe I just typed. Let's see here. Let me see if I can pull it up. Yeah, uh, I have
While John's
problems
getting
with.
that ready, I mean, kind of touching on what's been an interesting summer here for a lot of our American handball players. I think he's going to start here with Mr. Benjamin Edwards, who's playing on a pretty stacked squad. You look at the roster with that Veszprem team, and it's pretty ridiculous because he's got Sindrich alongside him, and um, there was I think who was it? I was looking through the roster that was playing in this tournament. I was like, he's good.
So
He's
I
along
did,
some
and
good
I've
company.
reached out to some different people to try and figure out what the heck. um, I, don't get me wrong. He's got a tremendous future, but I I just don't see him quite with the Veszprem first team yet.
Yeah,
So I don't know if this was something they were just doing for a friendly, which hey, that's still awesome that you're that valuable that you're getting called up to play in a friendly against Berlin and
a good
Kiel.
club. Yep, two solid teams.
And yeah, he only played a couple minutes here, but you can see in the video, he's the guy. He just got the ball. He gets wrapped up pretty good, but nice pass into the circle there. Damn, I, it's like what I posted. I can hardly believe I typed that.
Yeah,
I mean, this is
and my understanding is, his brother Oliver is still a pretty solid player himself as well. He's bouncing around some different Hungarian clubs, and uh, we tried to get in contact with him when we were out there in March, but he had, I think, transferred clubs. But he'd
yeah,
spent some time in the Veszprem system as well.
yeah. They both definitely, I think, have a future with the USA national team. But I this is ahead of schedule. I guess
Yes.
is what I'm getting at. Maybe because Best Prem is such a stacked roster, but they when they play Champions League matches and they have a weaker team in the Hungarian league that they're pretty sure that they can beat.
Yep.
Uh, if he's on the roster, I think he can be called up for those matches. And I'm not sure exactly um, what their second team status is. I was trying to get more information, but I haven't been able to get any verification on just what's going on there.
Yeah, but just like looking at this roster for the game against Kiel, you got Hugo Descott, Corrales, and goal Lucas Sandell, uh, the Icelandic guy, Ellison, Lucas Hendricks, Remily, Yahia Eldera, like Fabregas. So you got a lot of big time names, and
This
then Benjamin
Prem
Edwards.
is one of the top five teams in the world. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Um, they would beat many national teams for sure.
Yep.
There might be only a couple that could beat them. But wow, what an incredible opportunity for him. And he's young.
Yep.
Yep. I don't know. I should have checked his age. He's like either I think he's 20 or 21. I
Yeah,
don't.
I was gonna say 21 because he's been on the junior team the last few go rounds.
Well, I think he was actually on the youth team the last go round. And that was one of the reasons why they were able to hang with some of those teams, um, because he was such a solid player, especially once you lose to the European teams, then you get a chance to go play some of the other minnows of the handball world. A player
Yep.
like that is just going to do well, I
Yeah.
think. Um, and other action, um, I didn't get a chance to see the games this weekend, but Ian Hooter and his ASV Ham side advanced in uh, the German Handball Cup or the DKP Pokal. Um, and so they move on to the next round. And then Paul Skarupa with VFL Lubeck Schwartau also won. So they advance. And it's um, to the round of 32, where chances are they will play each side will play a first division team, most likely. So great job for them.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
What do you think of these kind of preseason tournament kind of things? Because I was
well,
talking a little bit about this with Sebastian Wheeler because he said, Elverum was going and playing like a third league Norwegian team or something like that. And I was like, that just seems ridiculous.
well, so first off, to be clear, the ASV Ham and Lubeck Schwartau, they were playing
Oh,
cup games. They were
okay.
meaningful games. It's their season long madness instead of March
Yeah.
Madness, if you will. So those are meaningful games, but it's kind of a mix if you look at all the pro teams. Sometimes they're playing a nearby side just because it's convenient, and um, it's kind of throwing a bone, I think, to the smaller league team for them to get to play friendly.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they have these big tournaments, which, yeah, obviously Veszprem was playing in with Kiel and Berlin, and I can't think what the fourth side was. But those are kind of showcases, if you will. They play them typically in a handball loving place, but it's an opportunity for those fans to see the players. It's a little bit like spring training, kind of.
Yeah.
Sometimes the good teams play each other. Sometimes they play like a minor league team to you know shake out the cobwebs, if you will.
Yeah.
Here's what I've proposed. I'm hoping it'll catch fire, but it hasn't. Is anybody that argues about what's the best league in the world? You've got who does the Big Ten play now in college basketball for their matchup? Do they play the
Oh, the
ACC still?
ACC. Yep.
So just like the Big Ten ACC matchup, and then I think the Big 12 was playing. I think they were playing the SEC.
Yep.
They're doing it regular season. They pick a weekend and they do it. But why don't they pick this last weekend in August and have the number one German side play the number one French side all the way down to number 14? Um, so those would be meaningful games because I think there would be some pride on the line, but still, no harm, no foul games because it wouldn't hurt you in the standings.
Yeah.
But what better preparation would it be to play a game with something a little bit on the line, but still nothing on the line? I
Right.
think it would be a wonderful. And then the Danish league, let's match them up against Spain or Hungary.
Yeah.
I think those would be awesome matches, and they
And,
could play. They could play half of them in Spain and half of them in Denmark. Like the 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 teams in Denmark would play at home, and the 2, 4, 6, 8 teams would play in Spain. And if Germany says they're the best league and they
prove
win
it.
12 out of 14 matches against the French teams, I think that would be an extremely strong case that you're the best league in the world. If it turned out it was like 7-7, then it would be like, maybe you guys aren't so good. But it would be a way to not settle an argument, but put some good data behind it.
Yep. Yep. And I think not just that, but tickets, viewers, the whole business side of things. I think you can only do wonders on that front.
That would be. that would be must see TV, I think. And think about like the 10th place teams in each of those leagues, that don't get the opportunity to play in the Champions League or the EHF League,
Yep.
the EHF, whatever they call it
Champions
now,
Cup,
European League.
European League. Yep. Yep.
They would get the opportunity to kind of say, because that's one of the big things that the German League likes. I'll say, top to bottom, you know, there's no rest. You're going in ice and knock. You're fighting to keep from being relegated. They got a player that's now playing for Magdeburg, so um, that would be a real big opportunity to say, okay, you guys say you're best top to bottom. Well, let's see how your bottom compares to France. Personally, I think the German teams would clobber the lower level French teams. I think once you get past, well,
I, I,
it could be a clean sweep. I mean, not a clean sweep, but if I had to bet on it, it would be 10-4 for the German teams if they were to do
probably
that.
fair. Yeah.
But it's all speculation.
Yeah. So we
We could call it the
settle it
Team
on court.
Handball News Invitational or
Yeah, put a
something.
good word out there for them. Be like, hey, I'm not going to fund this, but I think this is something you guys should think about. So
But yeah, and then I guess locally, I don't have the results in front of me. It looks like they had a big shindig out in Huntington Beach again, bigger and better than the one I attended last year. So um,
I believe this
keeping
is
up
the
the good work.
14th or 15th
17th, I
SoCal.
believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
So
uh,
it's a nice little tournament. Maybe you'll get out there
one
one
day.
of these days.
Yeah.
Um, it- Surprise, surprise, Huntington Beach is a little bit nicer than Flanders. Just a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
bit,
It's probably.
just a wee bit.
I think convincing the guys it's a different vibe, probably. But hey, I'm not going to complain. We came up with our Flanders title, so
Well, you'd have to fly there too.
yeah, yeah, it's a
That would
big
be the.
difference.
I thought about taking a 2 day drive to go there again. I said, I need a plan for my. I'm thinking about going to see Glacier National Park, and then I was like, maybe I should go up into Banff and maybe even Jasper. I don't know.
Stop
have
by
to
the
plan
Alberta
that.
operation. So
Well, that's I yeah, maybe I should. I don't know what the status is of that right now. Maybe another short trip in Colorado before I plan a mega trip. But
yeah, Steve Fodor, he's kind of running the beach scene up there, and everything's running through Alberta. So um,
Steve and I played against each other
oh,
back in the
back in
day.
the
So
heyday. So
his team even came down. And this little side story. I went into a Denver Wolves practice this weekend. We actually had one CU Buff player show up, so that was kind of nice. But I got to thinking, because you have Flanders, and then California. When I was playing there, we had the Ventura Cup. We played on the grass on the beach in Ventura.
okay,
Much nicer location
yeah,
than
middle of nowhere, New
Flanders.
Jersey. Yep.
It just cool breeze coming in. And I was like, maybe we should have a mountain Flanders. You get Air
Yeah.
Force and Denver. And Banff used to have a tournament like that, or the Alberta people. They used to
Okay.
play a tournament in Banff, which would be
That would be
phenomenal.
very cool.
Yeah.
I know from the lacrosse scene, there's every summer a big outdoor lacrosse tournament in Denver. That's been going on for like 20 years now, 20, 30 years. So there's definitely, I think, a case for that.
Yeah, you're generally going to get better weather, especially for an outdoor event. Nothing against the great tournament they had in Flanders, but
You
it
never know
it
what
can
you're going to
feel
get.
like you're in a swamp sometimes.
It did rain this year, so Hansi was being too nice. He called off the games for the rest of Saturday afternoon. His fear of injury. I'm like, we didn't come here to play nice. We knew there was always a risk of injury. Like we're going to play through the rain. We'll play through whatever. So we made it work. But
Yeah. Well, are we ready to switch gears to a different
I was
topic?
going to touch one more thing real quick on players, American-ish players playing abroad that
Oh,
winning
okay.
home, bringing home some titles. Yoav Lombroso. I still have not made contact with him, but I know that he's got some loose ties to American citizenship. But he's playing with CSM Bucuresti, and they won some tournament there. But I'm still trying to get him to play for our Maccabi team, and that would be very, very nice. Get him playing with our
Oh,
Team
wow, yeah.
USA Maccabi team.
That would be a tremendous ad. And
Yeah,
I no secret here. I've been rooting against the Israeli national team, not because I'm an anti
yeah.
Israel
Don't,
person. I just wanted Israel to not qualify for anything, just so that there's anybody with American citizenship.
yeah, cough,
Lombroso
cough.
might consider maybe I'd be better off with the U.S. But
Yeah, because Ben Liberty won. They won the Israeli Cup at the end of the spring as well. So got a couple good, dual citizens there in the Israel neck of the woods.
Israel has been an up and coming team, kind of on the cusp of doing good things for quite a while. Um, so,
But
but
anyways,
we'll
that's all I
see.
got. That's all I got on that one. So
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. Um, wanted to talk a little bit about what you guys did during the Olympics. You had the handball house going, and you did all kinds of interviews with Olympians.
you got my face palm right there for when I called Laura Conan. I can't even say her last name. It's Conan Ryan, and I called her Laura Conan Doyle. So it's pretty bad. It's
Yes, I,
pretty
I
bad.
remember that. I remember that. That was one of the lighter moments. I'd never really thought about that before, but
I
Sir
just
Arthur Conan
it's not
Doyle, the
even spelled. It's not even
Sherlock
spelled
Holmes
the right
guy.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um, but yeah, there were lots of great interviews with the Olympians, and I had a post uh, on social media telling people to go there and to watch each of the different videos. And it looks like Mark Wright put together a highlight video of them. Um, but you can see it's like a huge who's who of handball.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got Sam Jones, Cindy Stinger, uh, Laura Ryan. I mean, those are three-time Olympians um, that were instrumental, probably in terms of the golden years of USA women's handball. And then you had it was kind of an eclectic uh, with the men because there were
Yeah.
several guys I maybe had heard the names before, but I'd never really um, knew much about them. And then some that I'd played against still didn't know much about them. It was really interesting with lots of fun tidbits. Bobby
Oh
Knight
yes.
in the corridor. Um, getting a picture of Ronald Reagan.
The
I
all
don't think
time.
that would happen today the way
There's
the
not
way
a
it was
chance.
described.
Not a
Um,
chance. He would have been shot.
well,
It's crazy.
yeah, but there were lots of great interviews, and but as somebody watching it, it's kind of funny for me. Let's see, I'll stop the share here. Um, I feel sometimes like I kind of bridge two eras,
Yeah.
if you will, um, in terms of our national teams that were all, pretty much residency type team products. And I was kind of like on the tail end of that for a couple years. So I got a little taste of it from let me do the math here, 91 and 93. Um, so you interview Matt Ryan and Tom Fitzgerald, who were teammates of
Yep.
mine at one big trip where I went to the World Championships in '93. Um, so you have that. that generation there who's my age and older. And then from there on, it's kind of a new world that's changed. Our club teams have changed to become more expat. Um, we've had residency programs, but they were austere. And I see a I don't know if it's a dichotomy or it's just sometimes those two worlds don't understand each other.
Hmm.
Um, and you see it when you talk to people. Um, they don't really understand what's going on now. And then I talk to a younger guy like you. You're a little bit more educated, um, just because you've been around a little bit
I've been
longer. That's why
around.
that's why I
Yeah.
was saying well, I should do this with
Yeah.
Max Littman, because he's even younger and has a little bit less insight to what happened before. But he got a real good education on that because I could see that in the different interviews. But one of the themes that I have is I'm going to call it play handball, see the world.
Yeah.
And from your perspective as a younger guy, when you got all those great interviews and they talked about the trips that they went on and the competition they had, what's your perspective from a
Yeah.
big picture perspective?
I think it's very interesting because almost everybody, it was playing some other sport. Somebody walks into the gym, says, "Hey, come to this tryout next week, or within several days. Go to said tryout, make the national team, go to another country in another week." So they basically went from never knowing the sport existed to being on the national team in a matter of, you know, 2 to 4 weeks. And I think from there, like myself, I when I made the team, we did three countries in 3 months, and I was hooked. I mean, whatever is asked of me, I'll do. And I think that that's something that being in that same kind of boat, you find ways. Obviously, paying for these trips is not easy, and especially when you're gone for long periods of time. Most of the people in the conversation were either, you know, end of college or post grad kind of thing, so they needed to find ways to make money. So it was one of those things, especially talking with the '96 group. There's a couple of key guys that had really well paying jobs that they kind of helped people find a way to make ends meet to make sure that everybody could afford, a way to get there and things like that. But even all right, okay, go ahead.
No, I was with part of that crew for a while, and yes, I could not go to a bar without having to pay the. I'm a cheapskate, but man,
Yeah,
I knew that I was the only one with a real full time job. Um, so I mean, it's kind of saying one of the worst players on the team was the highest paid.
yeah, yeah.
um, and some other good folks they were either doing a smaller job or but money was an issue, and I just had to say that's I
No,
didn't
no,
pay every
that's
time. Don't get me wrong, I didn't
yep.
pay every time, but I paid more than
Paid your
more
dues
than
there
I
and
paid
more.
more than I normally would. Um,
But I think
but
they also went to a lot of destinations that they had maybe good relationships with. Obviously the Bunings and Laszlo, they had great connections to Germany and Hungary, and would get connections to some other countries that might have been lower cost of living. I mean, Cindy Stinger talked about going to the Congo or somewhere like that. I can't imagine it being, obviously in the '80s, what the price of going to the Congo, just getting there, probably wouldn't be cheap. But once you're there, it's sounded like pretty ridiculous situation. So
yeah, but one of the things I think some of the old timers don't realize, and don't get me wrong, they made a lot of sacrifices to play a game that they loved, but resources wise, and there were you know stay at this stay at this training center, because they're going to let us do it, or this club's going to help us out with lodging. So there were economical moves that were made, but on the flip side, we've never been able to spend as much on national teams ever since then. I mean,
And
even
I
when
think
I
I
played,
talked
there
I
was a stipend that
yeah.
coach would hand out money on the trip to for meals on occasion if we did
I,
not have um, a meal at the hotel, for
yeah.
instance.
And I think, I talked with a lot of the SSC guys, obviously while we were at Flanders, and they'd been, around the handball block for a long time, and they were telling me how, Dr. Buning, obviously being the head of the organization and coach and this and father of several guys that are on the national team, he pretty much could just kind of do whatever he saw fit, and nobody was gonna push back that much on it. And they had a lot of good teams, and competed at a pretty good level. But to your point, should spending have gone maybe elsewhere to further development? They put all their eggs in a couple baskets and got some chickens, but didn't get a full chicken farm. So
There's some logic to that strategy, and I can make a solid case for that strategy of build top down, get a medal with your national teams, get people excited about it and grow the sport. Um, I can see the logic for it. I don't know how much of a debate was had of that strategy versus, hey, let's focus on grassroots, growing the college game or or something. Um, and if you look at the budgets, I have some old articles that compare the budgets from way back. It's and not even including insurance, or not insurance, interest.
yeah,
Um, that of how much inflation. I got the right
yeah, what,
IN
yeah,
word finally. Inflation. Um, uh, the budgets were significantly more than what we have today. Um, and a lot of it went to the national teams that were competitive. Um, and for me, as an athlete, it's like, oh wow, I can see what they're doing. I want to do that.
yeah,
I want so it does have a development aspect of it too, and that it encouraged guys like me to pick up
stick
the game
around.
because
Yeah,
they could see the opportunity there of all the different trips to Europe, and playing other countries and whatnot. Um, but that's not our situation today.
no.
It's just not.
And the other
Um,
piece, in today's situation, you look at the number of national teams that everybody's, drawn from the same pot. So, you got your men's and women's senior indoor, men's and women's beach, men's and women's junior teams, men's and women's youth teams, men's and women's junior youth beach teams. Now we introduced the wheelchair team. Uh, Everybody's asking for money, and there's only a finite amount of funds. And that was a big debate when I was on the board about, how do we allocate appropriately? Do we allocate based on success? Do we, because then the beach people are like, well, here we are going to worlds and winning our, tournaments, and we're not getting any funding. And it's like, well, you're not in the Olympic games, so we're not going to see it the same way. And then it's like, well, what about the junior teams? And so it was just a big fight as to who gets what, and there really isn't that much funding to go around.
well, they did have youth, and I think they had a U21 tournament, which we went to a few times, and we
Yeah,
got just absolutely annihilated
handled. Yeah.
because we did not have the number of dual citizens, and so it was generally a pretty inexperienced side uh, going over there. I mean, I
All
think there
the
was like some
Adelphi, recruits.
no, well, not really at that point.
Was
I
it
think
more
there'd
the
be a few people on the residency program that
okay?
would fit the age, maybe a few college athletes. Um, there were the guys in California that I played against that were like the California juniors, but I think they played like the Soviet Union when Talent Dushabayev was
Oh, geez.
for them.
Yeah.
They got beat by like 50 goals,
Yep.
some crazy amount like that. Um,
But
and
that's like when we were talking to Tim Funk. he's growing up in Texas talking about, being a military kid and his, being, it sounded like he was at school on base and there's a couple different schools on the base or something like that, or they'd go to other military bases and all the schools had handball as a sport basically. And I'm like, that's just wild to me. I
Yeah,
mean, just disappeared.
that was something that I had not heard of before. Because really anything from the 72 guys, other than when I have talked to them in the past, um, it was before my time. So even
Yeah,
even for me, it was educational to
it's
watch
yeah,
some of those videos. Um, the second theme that I wanted to touch on a little bit is you did have an eclectic mix of guys, but in terms of the overall raw talent level, and I don't know if you realized it or not, especially for a transfer athlete, it was a higher pound for pound. It was a higher level of athlete coming into handball than
yeah.
what
I
we do
mean,
get today from the transfer side.
a lot of D1 basketball, D1 baseball guys that are, again, I'm not trying to compare generational athletes, etc., because the sports industry, the athlete as we know it has changed over the course of 50 years. But at the time, they were at a, high level. So
It's not to say uh, that athletes get missed. They get missed. And maybe they could have been a D1 in the right situation, or maybe they grew like 6 inches or whatever, like Drew Donlin did.
yeah,
There's things like that happen. But I can tell you from my own personal experience as someone who wanted to play D1 basketball but just wasn't good enough. Um, Not that I wasn't a good player. I always felt like I'm as good as the other guys sitting on the bench for Air Force.
yeah, yeah,
but I wasn't a recruited athlete, so they're going to stick with their other guys that aren't as good enough. But the times I did play against uh, the better players, um, I just could see it, you know. And for me personally, there's this article that the Gazette Telegraph wrote many years ago, and they went and listed the top 50 basketball players at the Air Force Academy all time, which is very interesting for me because in the top 15, I had played against two handball players and I had played on the same team as two basketball players. So two guys younger than Jock and Schneeberger,
yeah.
but somebody had assessed them out of,
Thousands.
70 years of
Yeah,
basketball, lower level Division 1. Hey,
still Division 1.
we're happy when we make the tournament. That was the greatest moment of my college basketball, just making the tournament that one time back, or two times back in the early 2000s. But when I played against the other two guys who were actually a little bit younger than me, and I tried to get both of them to play handball,
Yeah.
um, one guy he would have made the Olympic team. I guarantee you. He was a high school quarterback, left-handed pitcher,
Oh, geez.
and he was like
Yeah.
my height. So a guy kind of looks like me who's a better athlete,
Yep.
you know. And the the thing that when I play basketball against these guys, I could play with them down low, but not on the wing.
They're
I had no chance.
drainage
I
shots.
could
Yeah.
not. I could not stay with them. They would drive by me, and if I got too close, they would drive by me. If I
Yep.
stayed too back, they would nail the jumper.
Knockdown shots. Yep.
And there was really no matter what I wanted to do in that situation, I just simply was not a good enough athlete to do that. Not that I'm a bad athlete. I might be the best basketball player ever to come out of my little town in Iowa, at 100 some years of people playing.
Yeah.
Um, but we had better athletes. Laura
Yeah.
Conan, all Big Ten basketball.
Yeah. Yeah.
My goodness.
Minnesota. Yeah.
All right. I mean, that'd be like getting, well, let's don't go crazy and say Caitlin Clark's
Caitlin
going to go
Clark.
play
Yeah.
handball. All
She
right.
didn't make the national team for this Olympics, so
Right. But, it's just a higher level athlete
I
that I think
guess
we can attract and get now.
the thing that I just I don't know. It's inherently different. I feel like now, but and I think it's just partially security and just normalcy of things. But it sounded like, you know, uh, uh, Dr. Buning or Laszlo or whoever just would walk into, a gym and basically just be like, "Oh, hey, like, you know, anybody here want to go play on the national team?" And I feel like for me, I do a lot of crazy stuff like that at Ohio State. There is a 0% chance that I'm not arrested trying to walk into a basketball practice or, going to a football practice. So
I think they were more adept in how they did that. And then it was also, depending on the situation, it would be after the fact, after they were done. Or
yeah.
you got the crazy situation with Air Force where intercollegiate athletes still played intramurals.
Oh,
So I mean, Jock and Schneeberger played handball, intramural handball at the academy, and then they put together a team to go play at national championships, and they had to like learn the rules while they were there, and they ended up getting second place.
jeez, jeez.
Basically it was the Air Force basketball team and a few other guys that almost won the national championships, having never really
Played.
played it correctly. Um, so it's like I said, we got better athletes then, and that I think those two aspects. I think some people, uh, I think that's a theme that maybe some of the younger people today don't fully comprehend. Um, that we had a significantly better pool of transfer talent.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know if it was just easier to get. Like I said, I think communication wise of getting in the door with them, like,
It
if
was
I were to
easier and there
go
were
to,
fewer opportunities for
yeah,
women. They're
yeah,
really, Laura Conan probably went over and played in Europe and they probably paid her a pittance and it was kind of neat to
yeah,
go play. But in reality, it was probably better situation playing college basketball in the US.
yeah.
Um, uh, well, we didn't solve anything there, JD, but
Yeah, but
those are
it's an interesting discussion.
it is an interesting discussion. And for anybody who hasn't checked out those videos, they really should. Um,
At least the
there's some
interview
fun
portion.
stories. There's some fun stories, and you'll learn a bit about the history where we come from. But the other point, I guess, and I don't really have time to elaborate on further. It's not really relevant. It's
Yeah,
it's a bygone
totally
era.
different game now,
Yeah,
both
but
on and
we
off the court.
yeah, it's more professional nowadays.
Yeah,
So even if we got those athletes, I don't know how well we would do. But
on all
we're out
sports.
of time, JD.
Yep. Sorry.
We can carry this discussion further, maybe next episode.
Yep.
But for JD Orr, I'm John Ryan, and thanks for listening.